live. So this morning's live video is going to be about Saturn, Helios, and Emperor Constantine at the Council of Nicaea. Now, I've only started talking about this recently, so might not be familiar with this, but if you've seen my video, the Saturn-Duality, then you know where I'm going with this. That's some of the videos I made after that. Anyway, so sun worship did not create Christianity. I'll repeat that again. Sun worship did not create Christianity. Christianity predates the Council of Nicaea, and if you don't believe me, go look up the Nicene manuscripts, and you'll find that there's no evidence that they created Christianity. Just wanted to make that very clear. So now I'm going to talk about the title. Saturn, Helios, and Nicaea with Emperor Constantine. Like I said. What did Constantine do at the Council of Nicaea? Why did he convene the Council of Nicaea? Well, let's start with why he convened it, then we'll get to what he did. Constantine, a few years before Nicaea was convened in 325 AD, added Sunday worship to Christianity officially as dogma in 321 AD. Before that, he passed the Edict of Milan in 313 AD, making Christianity to be a legal religion within the empire. Then he proceeded to make Sunday the official day of the Lord every week, which was incorporated from the god Sol Invictus. And by admission, before Constantine did this, there were other Christians already worshiping Jesus on Sundays anyway. Constantine, all he did was make it dogma, official throughout all of Christianity. That's pretty much what he did. But he didn't stop there, okay? He kept supporting Christianity, and he kept putting his own 2 cents into it. Essentially, this is what I'm getting to. He was replacing Jesus with the Son. And I suspect he was taking advantage of the fact that there were several New Testament texts, such as, let's see here, I can't remember off the top of my head. Won't be too long here. Such as John chapter 8, verse 12. When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So if you were to interpret what was said there with a Nicene interpretation of Christianity, then you would believe that that is talking about the sun lighting the world. But if you were to interpret that pre-Nicene Christianity, Christians thought, oh, since Jesus was associated with good and moral standards, he was viewed as, and not just that, but since he is the God of resurrection, people saw him as the light of the world, not as the literal light. But you know how people says, oh, you're spreading knowledge. Or people could say they're spreading knowledge, and they would use a fire symbol to do that. That's what they associated with Jesus. The knowledge of Jesus, his resurrection, that was the light of the world before Nicene Christianity. But after Nicene Christianity became the official dogma, which is also involved with the Catholic Church, which literally means universal church, the unification of multiple pagan religions throughout Rome, rolled up into one huge colossal with a bunch of holidays taken from other different religions, such as the winter solstice becoming Christmas, and the Easter Bunny, and all that kind of stuff that followed. But it wasn't enough to do just that. Constantine replaced the Sabbath day with Sunday. Now, why did he do that? Simple reason. Because what happens if you make Saturn the father of Jesus Christ? Well, then Jesus suddenly gets confused with Zeus now, right? Remember, Jesus is being replaced with Sol Invictus. His iconography is, at least. Now that takes us to why he convened the Council of Nicaea. He convened the Council of Nicaea primarily to respond against Arius. Arius. Look that up. Arius knew what Constantine was doing, and he did not like it. He was a Christian that believed in the theological humanoid Jesus Christ, the man, God-man, demigod, whatever you want to call that, the Son of God, not the sun in the sky that Constantine was remaking him to be. So he tried to stop him. He created a firestorm throughout Rome, a religion that was spread out and was a threat to Constantine and what they were trying to do. So what did Constantine do? Okay. Council of Nicaea, let's get over there. 318 bishops go into the Nicaean Council, convene, vote against Arius, and he's declared a heretic. This was also done to make sure to solidify the point that, to solidify Constantine's version of Jesus and creating the Nicene Creed, which resulted in the creation of Nicene Christianity. And ever since this happened, there's been a division within Christianity between those that believe in Jesus as a literal masculine entity, but that's part of the material world in a sense, but is not part of this, but is not the Son. But remember, they think Jesus is both immaterial and material, depending on if he's in heaven or on earth. God is supposed to be out. That he's God the Father eclipses the force of nature. And Jesus says, "I and the Father are one" in John chapter 10, verse 30. So if you put two and two together, you see where Jesus is going. He's also immaterial. He's outside the natural order. Is the point I'm trying to make. Maybe immaterial is the wrong term, but he's definitely outside the natural order. When he incarnates into human form, then he gets back into the natural order. Either way, he's not the Son. Not until Constantine did his thing anyway. So after Constantine did his thing, you have to remember that in the Orphic Trinity, it said the following: Zeus, Hades, Helios, Dionysus. 3 gods and 1 Godhead. You have to remember that. And Emperor Julian, he also knew about this. He just replaced Dionysus with Serapis, so now Serapis is part of that trinity instead of Dionysus. And this was done shortly before the Council of Constantinople, which is the council that set up the Trinity doctrine to be officially accepted as dogma in Christianity, long after Nicaea was already done with. So, if you put Sol Invictus in the fact that Sol in Rome was understood to be just another version of Helios, and since Helios and Zeus were practically the same god in the Orphic Trinity, and in Julian's Trinity, then what we got going on here is, that would make Zeus Jesus in this circumstance, because of not only what Constantine did, but what the Constantinople Council did later, which only further put into the works that what Constantine did, that which Constantine did. So now Saturn is God the Father, and Zeus is God the Son. And Jesus would represent the God that displaced his own Father. Not a coincidence that Revelation 22:16 talks about how Jesus is, depending on the translation, he's either the morning star or is the offspring of the morning star. And you have Lucifer rebelling against God in Isaiah. So that's no coincidence, because this is kind of, in a weird way, synchronizing Zeus, Helios, Hades with Lucifer, displacing his father Kronos of Saturn. In this particular instance, you would have to reinterpret this as, okay, well, didn't Zeus win the rebellion and Satan or Lucifer fell? He failed. Well, in this version, he doesn't fail. He wins and he becomes Jesus, the new God of this world. And that's why he's called Light of the World. God, it's really similar. And the new Satan, that's not him, but is another entity that's against him, would be the Satan, the devil, the God of this world, totally separate entity. That's a whole nother mess. But Satan would be the rival of Jesus, similar to how Zeus had to put up with his rivalry to Poseidon carrying the trident. Now, it's no coincidence because in the Trinity, Zeus, Helios, and Hades are the same, but Poseidon is left out, and he has the Trinity. I'm sorry, not the Trinity, the trident. The trident. He has the trident. So he is as Satan going up against him, but this only happens after Nicaean Christianity. Before that, we don't get any of this mess. So by doing that, the Son replaces Jesus quite literally. But what of Saturn? Are we talking about the god Saturn, or are we talking about the planet Saturn? Because that's a bit of a complex situation. Well, in this situation, we're talking about the actual planet. Because when the planet was named after the god by the Romans synchronized theology with astrology in order to blend these two pantheons into the same entities. So when you blend theological with theology, the understanding of humanoid beings with supernatural powers, and astrology, the worship of the planets and stars as deities, together you create astro-theology. And what results after that? Saturn the god and Saturn the planet are indistinguishable. They're the same being now. They're no longer different. They're not different entities sharing the same name. Dependent with the same name. They're the same now. And that's why Diodorus Siculus talked about Chronos Saturn was called Helios by the Chaldeans. You can go look that up. And he also says he specifically says it's a planet. He's not talking about the god. And he also says that it's because it was the most, what was the word that he used? Hold on. Just 1 second, because I cannot remember off the top of my head how he said it. But exact word I can't remember, but basically it has something to do with the planet being the brightest out there. So this is implying that Chronos, the planet, or Saturn, was being viewed as a sun somehow, and that's why he was called Helios by the Chaldeans. That is, of course, according to Diodorus Siculus. And you spell that name Diodorus Siculus, the Siculus. That's his last name. So I'm going to spell it again. Diodorus. Then his last name is spelled Siculus. So you can look that up. You'll see what I'm talking about. He's also called Diodorus of Sicily. So that's where he gets into the Saturn being the sun. It also reflects how some people today talk about Saturn actually being the sun in reality before the sun we have now. The common claim is it was a brown dwarf. And then the sun entered our solar system, realigned the planets and into its gravitational pull or orbit, whatever. And all of a sudden Saturn's not important anymore. It's just diffused into a gas giant. Now it doesn't matter. It's just orbiting the sun now. And Zeus, the sun, Jesus, is the king of the gods, and that's why the Olympian Council of the Planets orbits him. And he's the center of the solar system, so that's what's going on here. And that takes us back to Nicaean Christianity. So, this was an attempt by Constantine, and it worked very well to his favor, that united sun worship with Jesus. And by doing this, he disassociated Ares, the lamb, and even in a sense Yahweh, from the New Testament. It kind of disconnected the Jewish God from the New Testament when he did this. This also involves the Jews rejecting the Christians' claim that Jesus is their Messiah and what have you. And there's a lot of talk involved in that, and how the Christians incorporated Isaiah's scriptures and misinterpreted them. Let me rephrase. Purposely took advantage of the Septuagint's mistranslation of it, as far as I'm aware of, and incorporated it into the New Testament. And they did their own thing with it to make Jesus look like he's Emmanuel, which Emmanuel is not even the Jewish Messiah. The Jewish Messiah is called Mashiach ben David, which means Messiah, son of David. Emmanuel is a separate entity that came 700 to 800 years before Jesus in the Syro-Ephraimite War. I think it was about saving the Jews from being conquered and destroyed, something like that. So he's not even the Mashiach ben David, the worldly Messiah that would take over Israel, something like that. Wow, Jesus, that totally different story. When Jesus comes back, dead people start walking again, and 4 horsemen. And I talked about in a previous video a while back, the 4 horsemen actually came from Helios. See, that's why he's got 4 horses pulling the sun chariot. And his son Phaethon in Plato's Timaeus, dialogue of Timaeus, Phaethon lost control of his father's chariot and started scorching the earth when he pulled the sun too close to the earth. So if you put the 4 horses together and the iconography of the Greek sun chariot with Phaethon's mistake by accidentally pulling the sun too close to the earth because he lost control, you get pretty much the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in the New Testament, the book of Revelation. And then you get Jesus ascending to heaven, like Elijah ascending to heaven, and then Jesus, of course, is forsaken on the cross, just like Zeus strike down Phaethon. And when Zeus and Helios are the same god, Phaethon is his son too. So he strikes down his own son to save humanity, in a similar way how God forsaken Jesus to save humanity. It's very similar. And if you take Elijah's return in the book of Malachi, along with the Mashiach ben David, whom is making his coming on earth, and they incorporated that into the book of Revelation, you pretty much get the return of Jesus and the 4 horsemen and the apocalypse in the end times. Along with throwing in Plato's Timaeus, of course, and the iconography of the sun chariot. Since the New Testament's already laced with some of this astrology, it made Constantine's time so much less painful to go through to deal with trying to incorporate sun worship officially into Christianity. But the thing is, that's not how it was originally set up. And people haven't quite figured that out yet, but they'll get there. Right now, they're talking about, some people think that the sun is reflecting on water. That idea came from, I think it started with Nicaea Murdoch, if I remember correctly. She's the one that came up with that idea. Me personally, I don't know if the sun reflecting on water is Jesus walking on water. I don't know. Because then again, Orion and Hesiod's astronomy, written 700 years before the 1st century, talked something about Orion walking on water. And he was the son of Poseidon, so that's why he was able to walk on water. Poseidon gave him the power to do that. So at that point, since Orion isn't the sun, that's number 1. Number 2, Orion was a god in a sense, but he was also the constellation. Kind of both. But in either or, I'm not really sure how you're going to explain the walking on water part. I don't know why I wrote that in there. I guess it's because if I had to guess, it has something to do with Poseidon being a sea god himself, so maybe they imagined that the sea deity and his son would be able to walk on water, something like that. Which I could see how they could imagine that. Now the sun reflecting on water, that's an interesting explanation, but considering how far back that iconography goes, it goes way back, way before that. As far as I know, before a sun god was said to walk on water. So it doesn't look like it originally, even if it was true that some people thought Jesus as the sun walked on water because it was reflecting on water. It does not mean that was the original reason why he was thought to walk on water. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just want to point all that out. For those that are out there trying to research astrology influencing the Bible, you need to be careful, because it's because of what Constantine did. They really messed with Christianity. So it doesn't help those trying to research its origins in the first century. You get a lot of pseudo nonsense being thrown in there too. And be careful. There are people out there that are very biased. They'll try to tell you that these evidence for Jesus existing as a man and being crucified, all of it's fake. I find that very convenient. Josephus, Tacitus, the Pilate Stone, the James Ossory, are they really all fake, interpolated, and made up? Come on. That's ridiculous. That's absurd. Now, to give clarification, all of this evidence I just mentioned here, the citations I just gave, they only prove, if anything, that Jesus was just crucified. There's some man called Jesus that was crucified, and he happens to be James' brother. That's it. There's no resurrection story, no eyewitnesses, nothing. There's no confirmation, any of that. Besides, the resurrection isn't original anyway. I mean, a lot of people have figured that out now. But that's it.